We have our agenda. We have our rights. And don't question it. Don't talk about it or whatever unless you are in 100% full support. And in your full support, just support. Don't say nothing else about it. That's not how life works, friends. Of days ago, I was, I always don't jump on a story because I want to see how it's going to go, how it's going to trend, what's going to be the reaction to it. So Dave Chappelle announced that he was going to do his last Netflix catalog, the series in his Netflix catalog. So if you don't know, he has a catalog of work that is on Netflix, and this last one, The Closer, it was his said to be his last one. With it being his last one, it was a great marketing around that. But more importantly, once it aired, he received so much backlash about him being homophobic. And so then I began, to watch and see what everyone was saying. Then a CEO over at Netflix, ended up being suspended because she was sharing articles about the fact that he is perceived as a homophobic. At this point, I hadn't watched the show because I was like, okay, I'm not going to watch it yet. At first, I wasn't going to watch it. Then I was like, okay, he's really getting some backlash from this cancel culture. And cancel culture has its place, in my opinion, but generally speaking, it's ridiculous and it's absolutely out of hand. I think that there are some people that should be canceled. Now, that doesn't mean that they should be canceled in life. That doesn't mean that, grace shouldn't be shown to them. But there are basically what I'm saying. There's some people that should be fired. They don't belong in certain arenas. That's just my opinion. Now, there's some people that are being canceled because of their point of view, because of their opinion. And I don't think that that's right. Now, if their opinion, point of view is toxic in the sense that is invoking violence, it is invoking any type of harm to another group, then absolutely. And I can honestly say, as someone who has watched most of Dave Chappelle's catalog on Netflix, I don't think that that's what he was doing. And so Dave Chappelle doubled down, even when he did The Closer, as he was telling the jokes. And I'll talk about that here in a minute. As he was telling the jokes, he said, they're going to come for me for this. He said, but they have to understand, in essence, I'm paraphrasing. He was like, you can't cancel me. I'm the same dude when you tried to cancel me before. I walked away from a $50 million deal. You can't cancel me. And here's the thing. I feel that way. And I feel like other people who create content, whether it's comedy, entertainers especially, should walk in that type of power. You're not going to control my voice. Now, again, if you're inciting terrorism, hurting someone, different things like that, then no, and I don't want to even use the term cancel. Just you don't need to be, you need to be held responsible for your words. So there was backlash behind that. That was yesterday where the person that worked at Netflix got suspended. Dave Chappelle came out and he was like, listen, if this is what canceling looks like as a result of you guys responding to my series, I'm fine with it. If this is what cancel culture looks like. And what I took that as, y'all making me money. So go right ahead. And the other part about that is he really just doesn't care in that regard. And I think that, yes, we should care about 1% of us should care about what people have to say or whatever. But the truth of the matter is you're not going to get that power to control me. Okay. Thank you, Shannon. My point exactly. So with this notion, I decided, I was like, okay, I'm going to watch the series because I want to do a commentary on it and I want to bring it to the people and I want us to decide. First and foremost, I want you guys to let me know, without using the R word and different things like that, who deserves to be, if someone did, they deserve to be canceled. Leave a comment down below. And so for me, let's start the conversation off like this. Forget that, what I just said. Can anybody cancel anybody, really? No, that is my opinion. You can't cancel me. Now, you may pull your advertisement. You may say, I don't think that you're going to be a fit for our production. Look at Bird. Bird was canceled, so to speak. But the truth of the matter is, as it relates to life, because a lot of these entertainers, and I'm going to talk more about this here in a few seconds, a lot of these entertainers, a lot of people in Hollywood, when they are getting a backlash, they cannot take it. And not only can they not take it, bad things happens as a result to them. They end up in rehab and all this other stuff because they're not getting the support, the accolades and everything that they're normally getting because they were canceled. But I'm here to tell you that as long as we have our freedoms, you can't be canceled, as far as I'm concerned. You may have no advertisers. Yes, if you're in Hollywood, you can be blackballed and blacklisted and all, however. But the truth of the matter is, you being you who you are in the core of who you are, do not give anybody the power to cancel you. Meaning, let's explore this word cancel. You are no longer relevant. And we all are relevant in our own little ways. Meaning, we don't want anything to do with you or whatever. Again, that has its place in Hollywood. But some of these people are taking this to life. So anyway, I said, you know what? I'm going to watch it. And y'all, not only did I watched it 3 times because I wanted to make sure. Because I'm reading tweets and people are like, I don't see anything. And oh, he's so horrible and da-da-da-da-da. Before I get into telling you exactly what I thought about the show, the Netflix series with Dave Chappelle, like I said, I watched it 3 times and I took notes. And I brought the notes here so that I can go over them because I didn't want to miss anything. And I never bring notes to my show. But today I had to because I wanted to respond responsibly. So let's see what happens here. Let's listen.
Done about this. The problem is
let me rewind.
His team women's looks about genitalia tells us he has a new Netflix special out where he jokes about trans women's looks about genitalia, tells a story about beating up a lesbian woman. Now Chappelle says that he is team TERF, T-E-R-F, referencing the term for trans exclusionary radical feminist.
Do y'all see that?
Cancel J.K. Rowling. My God, J.K. Rowling wrote all the Harry Potter books by herself. She sold so many books, the Bible worries about her. And they canceled her because she said in an interview, and this is not exactly what she said, but effectually, she said, gender was a fact. And then the trans community got mad as they started calling her a TERF. So I looked it up.
I didn't even know that there was a such thing as a saying as a TERF.
TERF is an acronym. Stands for Trans Exclusionary Radical Feminist. I'm Team TERF. I agree. Man. Gender is a fact.
Right, so joining me now is activist and writer Raquel Willis. Raquel, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it. So let's talk about some things here and why there's been such criticism and
such criticism, and I believe a lot of them didn't even watch it. They couldn't have, but go ahead.
What we come up with here. Because he made the jokes. The critics are saying, look, you have to consider what's happening during this last historic year of anti-transgender legislation, introduced at least in 33 states, less than a year after a record high number of transgender people, most of them trans women of color, were killed. So what did you think, and you have to keep in mind, he is a comedian, right? But what did you think when you heard this?
Well, when I watched the special, I felt kind of disheartened that he was continuing this attack on the trans community. Now, I think we love to say, oh, comedian.
All right, so that's her take. It was an attack on the trans community. Okay? And then this is a different take from someone else who, Storm Moreau, if you don't know, Flame Moreau. It's not Storm, forgive me. Flame Moreau.
I'm Black. I am a comedian and I am transgendered. So I have 3 dogs in this fight, and I want to be fair to each and every one of those platforms. What I heard from Dave Chappelle's latest special was the overpouring of racism that he talked about, because I understand that he's talked about the transgender community, and some of the things were painful to hear, but funny, because as a comedian, that is our safe place. That is where we are the safest on stage, where we should feel like we should be able to say anything. Nina Simone said it best. How can you be an artist and not speak about the times? He says,
That's good. How can you be an artist and not speak about the times? And I'm gonna end it there, only because I want to get into most of my commentary. How can you be an artist, whether you are creating art, mixed media, you are creating music, you're creating comedy? A true artist knows the times and they capitalize on it, because that's where we're at. So we have one transgender person that came out and said, oh my goodness, it was harassment. He's doubled down on his stance. It was horrible. Then you have Flame Moreau, who said, listen, I have 3 dogs in this fight. I'm a male, transgender, I'm a comedian, whatever. Flame went on to say other things, but he was basically saying he's a comedian. Allow him to have the freedom of speech that we claim we have. Well, we all know that freedom of speech comes with consequences. But if a comedian is willing to say whatever they're saying, again, listen, I watched it 3 times. I watched the other specials that had me rolling on the floor several times. And nowhere in that commentary did he say they deserve to be, to not live anymore. You got to hurt them. None of that. Okay. So Shannon says, facts. T.S. Madison let it roll off her back too. Exactly. I didn't see T.S.'s stance, but that would have been a good reference to kind of see what it was. So anyway, y'all, I wanted to bring this to you so that we can have a conversation. Not necessarily, I am going to talk about the Netflix special, but I want to talk about what's wrong in America. And the fact of it is, we saw it with the last election. We see it. It's a cycle. The tough conversations are not allowed to be talked about, and you're not allowed to have any type of commentary or humor about it. Some things are funny, and some people will have dark humor. Some people will have humor related to stuff that makes you feel uncomfortable. But I think that's what makes society go around. I think that's what helps us deal with things. For someone who's going through cancer, and then for them to have a whole comedy bit about their cancer, you shouldn't cancel that person no more than Dave Chappelle coming out and giving his experience on the transgender community and what that looks like. Now, I watched it 3 times and I said, okay, when it first started out, I noticed that it felt like a more calmer Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle is not necessarily erratic, but it felt, when you watch the show, it felt a little bit like I was with a friend and we were with someone that didn't agree or believe the way we believed, but we all were mature and ready to have the conversation. There was no heckling, there was no boo, there was no nothing. And he was ready to tackle some tough subjects. But also you ever have a situation where, leave a thumbs up, you ever have a situation where you just were closed-minded at one point, but then life or whatever, or just maturity or just having an understanding, you're like, I now see your point of view. And so that's what it felt like. It felt like this comedy show, The Closer, felt like a very mature conversation on some very tough topics with your older brother who knew how to make jokes at the right moment. It was not your comedian, I don't know the word, but with the fast timing and his punchlines, he had you thinking, and then the punchline came and you were like, whoa, and then you laughed. It wasn't minstrel-like, it wasn't disrespectful. And I can tell that the people who are coming after him, they could not have watched that, number one, with the open mind, and number two, they did not watch the whole special. They did not. Why did I say this? Because, like I said, it felt like a hard, tough conversation with someone who was mature and ready to have the conversation and knew how to lighten it up a little bit with their comedy. I do that sometimes. If things get really, really tough and I'm talking or whatever, I'll say, I'll crack a joke in a minute. And my husband's like, you are so silly. That's what it felt like to me. Dave was not, he even mentioned, so why do I say this? He even mentioned in his show, The Closer, how in his previous shows, he didn't know certain words and terms you can't say. He said, I didn't know you couldn't say the Annie word with the TR attached to it. I didn't know you could say da 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 da. Perfect example. And I mean this to no disrespect to anybody. I don't know if you guys realize this, but it is not politically correct to say midget. But if you don't know that, you're going to go up on your comedy. You're going to go on your YouTube channel. You're going to say da 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 da, and you're going to say that M word, which is now offensive to some. But then you have some little people that'll say, I don't want to be called a little person. Call me a whatever. So that's the other part, y'all. It's subjective. But I'm telling you, the people that are giving him the backlash, there's no way they watch this show. There's no way. And it sort of feels like if you've been creating content for over 2 years or at least a year, you have gotten a troll. And I have gotten trolls, and I'm telling you, all they saw was the thumbnail and the person that I talked about that sent them over to my channel. You are da 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 da, and I'm like, clearly you didn't watch that. Clearly you didn't. So I think ultimately he's getting backlash because he mentioned a certain word, transgender. He mentioned a lot of stuff that he understood and didn't understand, and they didn't listen. And in order for us to grow as a nation, listen, if you're looking for a secluded conversation, a divisive conversation, that's not this channel. If you want to grow as your people, as our people, but as Americans, we have got to begin to have the tough conversations, the uncomfortable conversations, but not from a standpoint of wanting to respond, but from wanting to understand. Because here's the thing, whether we like it or not, whether you like it or not, if you are a transgender male or female, you got to understand that that goes against the social construct of our country in the sense of it's not common. And I've said it before on my channel, if you're doing something that's not common, expect not necessarily backlash, but expect people to say, I don't even understand what's going on. Help me understand. You're going to get joked about and everything else. Think about interracial marriage. That's common nowadays. Shout out to my babies. But there was a time where that was what was trending in society as far as this new thing, and that's what they would label it as. Now the white people are going to the black people. Now my black people are going, and we're still, some of y'all are still mad about it and still having this conversation. But the truth of the matter is it needed to have conversations and more conversations, not just in your family, not just among your friends group, but also within society in order for it to become, quote, the norm and acceptable. And now people can joke about it all the time. Interracial dating, da, 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 da. That's a joke that it's not even whatever. But there's something very significant about the LGBTQIA community in that it appears, and I'm gonna talk more about Dave's special because he kind of confirmed it, and then he had a perfect story to go along with this. It appears that, okay, for lack of a better term, we have our agenda, we have our rights. And don't question it, don't talk about it or whatever, unless you are in 100% full support. And in your full support, just support, don't say nothing else about it. That's not how life works, friends. That is not how, we're going to continue to clash. And that is the point of Dave's show. until we are all able to be in the same room and have these conversations, it's going to continue to be uncomfortable. It's going to continue to feel a certain way because no one's leading with love. So in Dave's special, I had a brain freeze there. In Dave's special, he talks about Daphne, and he gives us a very moving story. So it's not even all about transgender. Like, he talks about other things, but as he was closing, he talks about Daphne. Daphne was someone that he met. Long story short, Daphne was a comedian and a transgender female. And again, Dave even joked about him being able to use the pronouns and how he is rocking out the pronouns. But he said when he met her and all the other stories, he was unaware. He wasn't evolved. But he still joked about it. There's nothing wrong with it. So anyway, he talks about Daphne. And him and Daphne met or whatever, and she opened for him a few times or whatever. But and I hate to spoil this, so spoiler alert, I'm going to tell you. So anyway, in their relationship, so they met on a professional level, but then she bombed. It was terrible. But in being terrible, that same night that she was terrible, they were at an after party, so to speak, and Daphne killed it. Paul Mooney was there laughing it up. Dave Chappelle, everybody was there laughing it up. And Dave was like, listen, you're really funny. I'm going to take you under my wings. Every time I'm in this part of California, you're going to open for me and I'm going to coach you. So they had a relationship. So here we are, alleged transphobic Dave Chappelle now takes a transgender woman under the wings. Did you get any type of media about that? Mm-mm. Does he get any kudos for that? Mm-mm. Do you recognize his growth in that? I do. Now, like he said, it doesn't mean that he understands it all. He understood it all. But what it allowed him to do is to have a conversation, an open conversation. And he and her, he said that they were able to ask each other and talk about everything. And one of the things Daphne said was, I don't need you to agree. I don't need you to any of those things. Now, here's the thing. Daphne's different because I do think a lot of them want you to agree. But Daphne told him, she said, I don't need you to agree, co-sign, or anything. I just want you to acknowledge that I'm a human and I'm having a human experience. I was like, I can do that, Daphne. I can do that. And Dave Chappelle was like, I can do that. You are absolutely a human. And they began to this was over the course of, I don't know how long, but they began to have a really close relationship. And he was a friend. Well, Dave Chappelle does the special, and I'm over my time a little bit, but hang in there. We're getting somewhere. Dave Chappelle does the special, and he gets backlash again. And he's like, what the hell? Like, I'm not that what you're calling me. Daphne comes in support of Dave Chappelle. She tweets out, leave him alone, because that's not what this is. He is not a bigot. He's not this. Y'all know what happened? The community started bullying and coming after Daphne. And what Dave Chappelle called that it's a bold move when you go against your tribe, when you go against your people to support someone who doesn't fit in that community. So Dave Chappelle, of course, was thankful to Daphne and all of that. And she was bullied to the point where she found a building, climbed it, and jumped off. And here's the thing. I'm saying it the way I'm saying it, God rest her soul. But Dave made an awesome joke. His timing was impeccable in this. It really, really was. And so as deep of a moment that was, you understood he was so hurt by that because that was his friend. And they found through conversation, through community, through communion, the human experience of being able to empathize. So then that segued him to talking about empathy. I got my notes here. So again, I don't know. Everything about this special was positive. Now, Did he drop F-bombs, P-bombs, and all? Absolutely. That's Dave. It's comedy. So I don't understand because if I go to Paul Mooney show, I know what I'm going to get. If I go to Simone, if I go to Monique, if I go to Steve Hart, and then if I go to the Christian church down the street, I know what I'm going to get from Kev on stage. So the fact that he talks about empathy, and then he goes on to say, empathy is not gay. I'm reading my notes. He said it's not gay, it's not black, it's bisexual. When I tell you this man had jokes, but okay, he's probably watching because I see that he's changing the colors behind me, which I don't know why he's doing right now. But shout out to Mr. B because he watched the show first. And he kept saying, when he got done, he was like, this man is a genius. And I was like, genius? Smart? Because I do know Dave is smart. He is not ignorant. He said, no, he's a genius. Watch the series. And I was like, genius, come on, genius. Y'all, B, I know you're watching. That was genius. That was genius. That set was genius because he took something very dark. He took something very controversial, something very trending, turned it into a set. He was true to his beliefs. He was true to his punchlines, but then we were able to transcend our minds to be open, but not only just open, because here's the thing. I'm going to tell you, he wasn't like reprimanding his audience and saying, hey, treat trans people right. That's not what he said. It was more so where the people got the snippet from, they got it completely wrong. So I'm going to tell you what people did. They took the part after this whole story, and he said, please stop punching down on my people. And the trans community and critics took that and they thought he was talking about something else. And I want to suggest that he wasn't talking about what y'all think he was talking about. In his relationship with Daphne was talking about a lot of the punchlines, a lot of the stories, the way people see the trans community, the LGBTQIA community, however you want to say it, not however you want to say it, the community, it felt like punches. You're punching them down. And that's what it was. So Dave Chappelle's rebuttal was, well, listen, this will be the last special, but not only will this be the last special, this is the last time I'm going to talk to you guys, talk about you guys, make a joke about you guys. In essence, I'm paraphrasing. He said, because y'all not ready. You're not ready. Then he goes on to say, it's over. He said, until I know when I make a joke, we're laughing together, I'm done. And then he said, but I got one caveat for you. Please stop punching. Don't. Then he goes on to talk about who his people were. He mentioned Kevin Hart. He mentioned, and that's when the baby came up, the baby earlier. He mentioned Kevin Hart. He mentioned comedians and entertainers. Those are his people. Now, granted, of course, Black people are his people. But read the room of what he's talking about. That's why it's disjointed when you guys are listening to different people making snippets and they're like, what does that have to do with that? No, he is talking about Black people, I'm sure. But ultimately, he's saying, as much as you want us to stop punching you down, stop messing with my entertainer and comedy friends. If you're liking my channel, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to this channel, and don't forget to hit the notification bell. Right now, do it. Right now, do it. If you're just joining in or you're catching the replay, welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Melissa Berrien. We are ending and rounding out our conversation about Dave Chappelle. And so I ended with my punchline. That's what he's talking about. Until we can be in the room, friends, and we can talk about sex, love, violence, being Black, being white, being Chinese, being Arabic. Arabic. I hate that word. Just don't do right on my mouth. Being gay, multicultural, interracial dating. until we all can be in the same room that's why I wore my chain, y'all. Having a respectful, loving conversation about all these issues while we're welcoming people like me, people like Dave Chappelle, who knows how to take a very serious moment and find a joke in it, we're not going to go anywhere. That's what he meant. You got to watch the whole thing. He said, please stop punching down on my people. Basically, please allow us to say our jokes. Please allow Kevin Hart to host the Emmys or the Tonys, whatever it was. This is what he said. Please stop punching down on my people. And then he went to the story about how he would trade, and I might be putting it out of order, but I'm giving you a paraphrase. I'm summarizing the show. And that's where he was like, I'll do this for you, but please do not cancel the baby. That's where that came from. And ultimately, all people did was look at those snippets. Please don't cancel the baby. Please don't punch down on my people. Please don't And they did not look at the whole thing. So I encourage you, as you watch this, as you're watching this, and you have not watched the Dave Chappelle, the closer on Netflix, and you've already formed an opinion about Dave Chappelle as a result of this, as a result of the snippets, I encourage you to go back. It was phenomenal. And again, shout out to Mr. B, because he was like, that man is a genius. Because it takes a genius to be able to take a tough conversation, as I'm doing. Okay. No, I'm just kidding. But it takes a genius to be able to take a tough conversation, to confidently discuss it, and then give you a punchline behind it. And the problem seems to be people aren't even listening to even have the conversation, because we're trying to deny people of their personal human experience. And I had to learn that in the sense of, I don't have to agree. I don't have to co-sign. But just like poly is someone's polyamorous is someone's human experience, so are all these other things that are controversial, and really you don't have to carry it around in your back pocket. You don't. But allow the entertainment to continue. That is my thing. Kombucha says you aren't allowed to disagree with people anymore about anything. No conversation, no educational opportunity. You're just automatically a terrible person. It's exhausting. You see what I mean? And Kombucha, the truth of the matter is, when you watch his special, he has matured so much concerning his conversation around this. And as a result, he wants to have the conversation, but he also wants to be able to joke about it, you know? And I think he should be, and he has had conversations with people, but he also wants to be able to joke about it. Like, you know, you are absolutely correct, because I even thought about it when I was preparing this. I was like, you know, the truth of the matter is, if you were to say, you know what, I don't think Caitlyn Jenner should have wore that dress. Or I think she looks terrible as a female. Oh my God, you're getting the backlash out of this world. But you can also say, I think that black lady shouldn't wear those clothes. Or I think that white woman shouldn't Herein lies the problem. As always, my friends, make sure you be kind to people for absolutely no reason. Oh, I didn't tell y'all what happened to Daphne. I ain't gonna tell you. Well, I did tell you. I told y'all. Never mind. I told you. Okay. I was gonna say, yeah. Because when I was saying be kind to other people, because you never know what they're going through. So anyway, be kind, because you never know what people are going through for absolutely no reason. I will see you guys again on Friday at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. In the meantime, bye-bye.